For series 1 of STEMsational, I'm going to be discussing diversity and inclusion within STEM. I'm going to be speaking to women from a range of automotive and tech companies to understand how they broke into the industry, dig deeper into what they've been doing during their career, and also get their opinion on gender diversity within STEM. So today on STEMsational, I will be speaking with Kristin Slanina. Kristin is the Chief Operating Officer of TrueCar, starting her career at Ford as a powertrain engineer. She's also gone to work for other leading OEMs such as Fiat Chrysler. Now, you joined the business around 3 months ago.
Well, I've actually been on board just over 2 months now, so still new, but getting up to speed very quickly.
Fantastic. So could you give me an overview of your role as Chief Operating Officer and also a little bit about what the company does?
Yeah, so TrueCar has actually been around for over 15 years. So they were kind of, in the forefront of this. It's really about how to connect shoppers to new and used cars. Kind of navigating that space and doing research online has definitely been growing and growing. And with COVID in place, people are very much more interested now, more than ever before, on what I'll call the full digital end-to-end retail experience.
And what's your vision for the business?
You have to bring in different partners as you look at trade-in values, as you look at financing, insurance, and the whole process of the monthly payment, because that's also tied to credit scores. So it's bringing in that ecosystem and leveraging technology such as distributed ledger to help validate and verify the person. So that I think is going to really help simplify the whole process.
Now, do you think there is a diversity issue within the automotive industry?
When I hired in right after grad school, I hired into Ford and I chose engine division. I could even see way back then that, kind of the winds of change that was going to happen to propulsion. I didn't really realize it, but the engine division is, of all of the areas in automotive, that's the least percent of women. Mm-hmm. And I actually thank my 3 brothers for training me really well with what I call kind of guy mentality to really just kind of understand better. And so I have to say I felt very fortunate in terms of the work itself. I could be in a room with 40, 50 people and be the only woman. I think because of my brothers, it didn't bother me, but there was clearly huge differential in terms of percentages. I think for a lot of other women who got hired in, there was, I think, good efforts to try to hire in women, but the retention was very difficult because a lot of the women just said, well, I'm tired of this. I'm not going to put up with it anymore. And they would leave. They'd leave the industry.
Now, a big misconception about the automotive industry that can deter women from joining is that it lacks work-life balance. Now, you have raised 3 sons whilst having a brilliant career. Tell me how you did it.
Yeah. So, there's a couple things that I decided to do. Ford had sent me to spend 2.5 years in Germany. So I was in their Cologne, Germany facility where they have a lot of manufacturing as well as, of course, design and release of parts. Mm-hmm. So I worked there. When I came back, I was 29 years old and knew I was going to want to have kids soon. And so I was very specific. There's a headset I have about what I call simplifying my life. I could make choices like other people I know at Ford who had half-hour or hour commutes. But in wintertime, honestly, if you have a snowstorm, you could have 2.5 hours to get to the office, just one way, right? I decided that I wanted to I picked a certain quadrant, basically 2 miles within the engineering offices here in Dearborn. I wanted to simplify my life. I did not want to be, the victim of an unknown commute time, especially if I was going to have kids. I ended up having my first, within the year of coming back from Germany. There was a new program that they had launched called job sharing and also working partial schedules. And so you get paid according to the schedule that you have. And the job sharing, I was kind of hesitant about it. So when I had my first child and was on leave, I still wasn't sure what I was going to do. And a pivotal thing happened is that summer when I was still on leave, I was a supervisor at the time. And so one level up is the manager. And there was a man and a woman manager that decided to job share on a job in engine division. And I was shocked because I was like, and I looked at that almost as a sign that, wow, if that really happened, like that really happened. And so it gave me the confidence that I was going to be able to make this work. And so I was determined. So when I was ready to start coming back, I sent a note out to managers and directors that I knew and said that I was looking for a 3-day-a-week position. And did they have anything in mind? One of the directors that I worked with when I had been in Cologne was already back in the States and instantly responded, a really great opportunity for 9 years. And I really, admire Ford for this. For 9 years, I was able to work a 3-day-a-week schedule. And I rotated I was pulled into many different jobs, basically every 2 years into some new and exciting job, and even got promoted to manager while I was job sharing.
You are a female leader in the industry. What have you found best to promote and nurture women in the workplace?
As I have risen to higher levels, it became apparent that younger women were struggling with the same things that I had struggled with. Kind of started out a little bit more informally, where, they would come and talk to me and just ask me for input, advice. And then what it did is it grew into more. And obviously, most places have mentoring programs, and Ford did as well. So I became an official mentor. And I always had women assigned to me. So it started out like that, and then it grew and grew. And so as I went to different positions and had greater spheres of influence, I even had the 140 women in powertrain of the entire organization at FCA come to what I call a mentoring kickoff meeting. And I scheduled half-hour one-on-ones with all of them just so I could get to know them better and help them navigate through that. So little things like that, little successes, women need that because a lot of times they don't feel that they have that opportunity, but you need to ask and be confident that you've thought through it.
What do you think are the biggest challenges ahead for the next generation of female leaders?
It's about continuing to send that message and to be that role model. In automotive, there's still not a huge percent of role models. And there's still, it's still what I call a long time older industry. So I think there's differences between, newer companies and startups and technology companies versus what I'll call more traditional, 100-year plus old companies. I think that there's still a challenge of what I'll call the older school thought, because there's still a lot of people working that have been around when I started that are kind of used to the way things were, also having those role models. So I think it's continuing to mentor, but also give that what I call the tips and the tricks, durability of maybe staying through, because sometimes a difficult experience, you come out so much better afterwards, as opposed to giving up and just saying, oh, I'm done with automotive, but I'll just leave the whole industry. So I think that those are the challenges that we need to continue to drive forward.
And for those women who are maybe watching, listening, and may feel discouraged, especially within, as you said, those more traditional businesses who may not be so open to having conversations about flexibility, what would your advice be to them to build confidence in the workplace?
People also need to be taught. In colleges and universities, you're not really taught confidence, right? You're taught how to take your test and learn your material. Some people innately have that, and others need to see it in action, but also kind of be taught these lessons. So I think that there's opportunity as part of, kind of training in the curriculum, because I know that many companies offer a lot of good training about how you can start developing that. I like to read books. And so, reading about how you can start valuing yourself and knowing that how you contribute. And women do contribute differently. You shouldn't be benchmarking, let's say your male colleague, right? The power that we have as women is that we do things in a different way. And it's good. It's good to do that. It's so powerful having, great collaboration between men and women, because that's what's going to take us much further, much further.
Now, diversity and inclusion are big buzzwords at the moment. It seems to be a topic on everyone's tongues, but a lot of companies and a lot of managers who are maybe watching this maybe want to start promoting it more in the organizations, but don't know where to start. So as an employer, what advice would you give to companies that want to start promoting diversity and inclusion, but don't know where to start?
Well, me being an engineer, I'm all about facts and data. And so there's some really good studies and data and analysis that's been done about companies that have that diversity and how much, let's say, more revenue they have, profit. There's lots of different ways to slice and dice the data. I think that's a great way to start. Basically, it's not bringing in, not telling people about what they have to do. It's really showing them information that leads itself to that answer. So that's kind of my approach is, how do you let the data speak for itself?
You was mentioned in the automotive news, 60 who are steering self-driving vehicles. Now, I'd be very curious to get your opinion on the future of autonomous vehicles.
So it has definitely been something ever since I started working on the mobility blueprint at Ford way back in 2012 that has been really top of my mind. I've been very active in that arena. While the technology has rapidly improved, when you think about the societal impacts and the changes, there's certainly going to have to be considerations. And my personal belief is that, autonomous cars are going to be expensive. They're going to have a lot of, equipment on there, and it's going to be of utmost importance that is completely maintained and that they're serviced. I think that inherently people are not necessarily good at even taking care of their own cars, right? They might not have money for fixing it, right? Or, they forget the oil change or whatever it is. So I'm a firm believer that we are going to need to have them be autonomous vehicle fleets. And that it's perfect for on-demand transportation, right? And what it also does is it helps with, let's say a city decides to geofence and say only autonomous transportation can be in this area. And you work out kind of what I'll call those transition zones. Maybe there's park and ride areas of transition. And it could be anything from individual personalized cars, 50 passenger buses that are autonomous. And another issue is, of course, most companies want to make money, and the most money can be made with the wealthier clientele, right? But you have to service the lower income families as well. So having an ecosystem of fleet where you say you have to serve the needs of the city can help counteract. So maybe the individual, fancier luxury rides help subsidize the 50 passenger buses. And it's a win-win because whatever company is managing that fleet still makes a profit and people's needs are being met. But I believe you need to study the data and the traffic patterns. You need to not just turn off, have a light switch go on and off and say, yep, we're going to do this now. It needs to be thought out. But it also helps with the electrification side because right now the charge times are really, we can't charge it as fast as we can fill a gas tank. Until that happens, until there's that parity, in my opinion, it's going to be very difficult to get that traction. And that's why autonomous on-demand fleet transportation, especially in big city centers, is, I think, a great way of managing city traffic, making the cities much more people-friendly, right? Because you don't have to have those parking lots there. That whole parking where you have the service, the maintaining, and the charging of those fleets can be done outside the city centers, right? And so I think that is a good way of handling the next stage of how we move.
Now, as I mentioned on our phone call, end the interview with something a bit more lighthearted. So I came up with a series of questions titled car. So these are your favorite things beginning with C, beginning with A, and beginning with R. Thought it was well titled. So to start off with the C, what would be your dream car?
You know what? I could say one of the super fancy, expensive, but you know what? I'm a little bit more practical and I like well-performing cars. And I do, after living in Germany and being on the Autobahn, I love to go fast. And honestly, I think that a BMW is really fun to drive. And it's also, it like addresses my practical side in terms of comfort and looks, and not being too ostentatious, and also not having to worry about low clearances when you're going over.
Yeah, of course.
But I think it's a fun car to drive. And I actually, after Germany, really do enjoy going fast.
So Kristin, coming from you, are you secretly saying that German cars might be better than American cars? Just out of curiosity.
I say on the grounds that it may incriminate me.
So A would be, what is your favorite animal?
Oh, you know what? Dolphins. And my son and I, my middle son, we went on a trip in Bimini, and we got to swim in the wild with dolphins, and it was so magical. I have always loved dolphins ever since I was little, and that was like a dream. So I would love to do that again. It was just a totally different experience than when you go to like a facility and then you swim in a pool, right? It was out there, and it was their choice to be with you or not. And there was one time I remember there was like 50 of them, and they're like swirling and dancing all around you, and it was just unbelievable. So dolphins, definitely.
That's amazing. Can't say that would scare me ever so slightly. However, sounds quite a nice experience. What is your favorite restaurant? You know what? I love Indian food. I really love Indian food. My boyfriend hates it, that with India, there's so many different spices and so many different regions that I just love trying it all. And I was able to go to India last March for work, and just really loved all the food. So I wouldn't say it's a specific restaurant, but that's a type that I love, and I'm not really as good at making it myself. So it's nice to go to a restaurant for that. What's your go-to curry? Oh, I just buy whatever at the store. I sincerely appreciate one of the first guests. Couldn't have asked for a better guest and the story. Thank you so much.